Imagine a bustling global marketplace not with stalls selling goods, but with countries trading with each other. For decades, the US dollar has been like the universal language spoken by almost everyone in this marketplace. When Japan wants to buy oil from Saudi Arabia, they often do it in dollars. When Brazil sells soybeans to China, it's often priced and paid for in dollars. This is what it means for the dollar to be the world's reserve currency and the dominant currency for international trade. Now let's address some common misconceptions. 1. 100+ countries have left the dollar. This isn't quite right. When people say left the dollar, they often confuse two very different things. One, countries that use the US dollar as their official currency. There are actually only a handful of countries that have officially adopted the US dollar as their own legal tender. Think of places like Ecuador, El Salvador, Panama, and a few others. For these countries, leaving the dollar would mean printing their own currency, which is a massive and often economically risky undertaking. It's like deciding to create a whole new language for your country when everyone already speaks English. It happens very rarely. 2. Countries that are reducing their reliance on the US dollar for trade and as a reserve currency. This is what's really happening, and it's a much more nuanced story. The real story: de-dollarization and diversification. Think of the dollar as the most popular currency in the global marketplace. For a long time, it was the most stable, liquid, and convenient option. But lately, some countries are starting to feel that relying so heavily on one currency has its drawbacks, especially when the country issuing that currency, the US, faces its own economic and political challenges. Here's why some countries are looking to reduce their dollar dependence: economic issues in the US. When the US experiences inflation, recessions, or debates over its debt ceiling, it can create instability in the dollar's value. Countries holding large amounts of dollars in their reserves or conducting a lot of trade in dollars feel the ripple effects. It's like having all your eggs in one basket, and that basket is getting a bit wobbly. Geopolitical concerns and sanctions. The US has the power to impose sanctions, which can cut off countries from the dollar-dominated global financial system, like SWIFT. Countries like Russia and Iran, for example, have been actively trying to reduce their dollar reliance to shield themselves from such measures. It's like knowing your main trading partner can, at any moment, decide to cut off your access to the universal language of trade. Desire for greater financial sovereignty. Many countries want more control over their own economies and financial systems. Using their own currencies or other currencies for trade can give them more autonomy and reduce their exposure to the policies of another nation. The rise of other economies. Countries like China, with its growing economic influence, are actively promoting the use of their own currency in international trade. The BRICS nations are a good example of a bloc actively working on diversifying away from the dollar by increasing trade in local currencies and exploring alternative payment systems like BRICS Pay. How countries leave, or rather reduce, reliance on the dollar. It's not about physically abandoning the dollar overnight. It's a gradual process of bilateral trade agreements in local currencies. Instead of settling trade in dollars, two countries agree to use their own currencies. For example, India and Malaysia have agreed to use the Indian rupee for trade settlements, diversifying foreign exchange reserves. Central banks hold reserves of foreign currencies to manage their own currency's value and for international transactions. Instead of holding mostly dollars, they might increase their holdings of other currencies like the euro, Japanese yen, or Chinese yuan, or even gold. Developing alternative payment systems. Initiatives like China's cross-border interbank payment system, CIPS, offer alternatives to the dollar-dominated SWIFT system, allowing for direct transactions in other currencies. Promoting domestic currency use. Some countries are encouraging their businesses to use the local currency for international transactions where possible. The bottom line: the idea that 100+ countries have left the dollar is an oversimplification. What's actually happening is a complex and ongoing process of de-dollarization, where a growing number of countries are actively seeking to reduce their heavy dependence on the US dollar. This is driven by a mix of economic concerns about US stability, geopolitical motivations, and a desire for greater financial independence. While the dollar remains the dominant global currency, its share is slowly and gradually declining as other currencies and payment systems gain traction in the ever-evolving global marketplace.